Hey guys, good afternoon. This is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and it is Friday, July 28th. And I have a great guest today. This is Mr. Mark Shuey. He started training in the martial arts when he got out of the Army in 1969, started with the Chuck Norris Tongsudo organization, and earned his first degree black belt in 1975. He then started training in Taekwondo and Hapkido in 1976. By 1983, he had to learn a few cane techniques for his third degree black belt test in Hapkido. While he was visiting his brother in Palm Springs in the early 90s, he encountered three ladies over the age of 75 who were brutally raped that weekend, and his brother said that it happens all the time. That's when he knew he had to help out senior citizens by making good hardwood canes. When he couldn't find any schools that taught the cane in the United States, Mr. Shuey started Cane Masters and the American Cane Systems. Recently, he found out that he was the first person in the world to start a complete recognized system on the bent cane, now called the Crook Cane. Mr. Shuey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
It's exciting to have you on here. We have some commonalities that I want to point out. Number one was the fact that you started training in Tongsudo, and I believe one of your instructors way back in the day was Dennis Ichikawa, who was my instructor.
That's right. It's amazing, isn't it? Back
That's
in the
it.
70s.
So tell me a little bit about your time in, well, maybe even let's go back further. Why don't you kind of introduce everybody to yourself just by telling them a little bit more about your childhood growing up, where you're from and your background before we talk about going into the Army, talking about getting into martial arts.
Okay, well, I haven't really grown up yet, but I'm trying. You go back in about the first or second grade, I was picked on a lot. And one day a guy hit me in the stomach and I'm on all fours and kids around are laughing. And I'm saying to myself, this will never happen to me again. And my best friend's dad was a Golden Gloves fighter. And he not only taught me boxing, but he taught me how to fight. And back in those days, you didn't throw kicks. It was all punches. If you threw a kick, you were a dirty fighter.
Hmm.
And for a couple of years, the guy's name was John. We probably fought, wrestled, boxed, had a good time for a few years. Then I was walking to school and just got into the seventh grade. And I won't give any last name, but the biggest bully in the school at that time, his name was Dave. And he started picking on me on the way to school. And I'm telling him to leave me alone. My buddy John there says, fight him, Mark. I said, I don't want to fight him. I don't want to fight him. And long story short, he threw a fist at me. I blocked and punched him. He went down. And from that time on, I really enjoyed fighting.
Now tell me, where did you grow up? Did you grow up here in California?
Yeah, I was Van Nuys. I went to Birmingham Junior High. You go back a little further, I went to Havenhurst Grade School. They tore that down. Then I went to Bassett Street. And then I went to Birmingham Junior High, which was a hospital back in those days, an old hospital. And then I went from there. I went up to Washington and worked on a horse ranch for a year. And that was interesting. That made me get tough because I had to get up in the snow, work with horses, cut wood. I was about 14 years old. And I came back to school pretty damn strong.
Yeah.
What? And then I went to Northridge Junior High. And then, of course, the bully there wanted to fight. And I found out the fight lasted about 10 seconds. And then about three other guys wanted to fight. And the guy always says, don't fight him, Shuey. This is a part of a gang. So I ended up leaving. And I started enjoying fighting. It was fun. And then about the 11th grade, I got into a fight with a gentleman. I hit him. He went down and had some kind of a spaz attack. I thought I killed him. And I stopped fighting. I didn't want to fight anymore. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I mean, I liked fighting and having fun that way. But when that guy was bouncing around like a dead fish, I stopped fighting for a while. And then when I got in the Army, I had a gentleman, a good friend of mine, Dave, we were trying to have lunch together, and they divided the cafeteria in half, and we couldn't sit next to each other. So we went over the other side and sat down and ate. And this big guy came up to me, and in fact, there was three of them. They said that we couldn't eat there together. And I finally said, okay, I got up to move, and he pushed me. And I let him have it, and he went up against the coffee urns, fell down on the ground. And then about 3 days later, he came into his show and told me to come outside. We'd finish the fight. I said, fine. and there was 25 of them. So I went back in the theater, and that was my fun. And then when I got out of the Army, I was a weightlifter and a wrestler back in those days. And I walked in the gym with my buddy Ken, and everybody was in the mirrors flexing. And that's not what I go to the gym for, is to flex. I go to the gym to work out. And we talked to each other, and we went to about 6 different dojos and ended up with the Chuck Norris system, and in Tarzana, which was at that time Harold Gross and Dennis Ichikawa.
Wow.
And I was with them for a good 6 years. Then I moved to Lake Tahoe and made my first black. And when I got to Lake Tahoe, they found out that I was a black belt. And the principal of the high school came to me and said they've been having attacks on the young ladies there at the school, and asked if I would train. And I said, sure, I'll do it for free. And they told me at that time, we don't do anything for free. Free is not worth anything. So I charged $25 a month, and I started out, with one student, and ended up with about 120 in the 80s.
Wow.
And Tahoe is a weird place. It's mostly skiers and stuff, but I've been teaching here. I taught all the way until COVID.
Yeah.
And I had to shut down.
Well, let's
have 3 students.
Let's back up a little bit. Let's go back. You grew up in Van Nuys, grew up in Southern California. Tell me about what was the Valley like back then? This is early to mid 60s growing up there.
Yeah, I graduated high school in ~65 from Granada Hills High School. It was different. You had to take care of yourself. My buddy John, it was funny because he used to go out and get me people to fight with all the time. Back in those days, as long as you didn't fight on the school yards, they didn't care. In fact, some of the teachers would go into the alleys and watch the fights and kind of be a referee.
Bring their popcorn.
Yeah, it was way different back in those days. And like I said, if you threw a kick, you were a dirty fighter.
Yeah,
things have changed since then.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you got involved in martial arts. How old were you when you first started martial arts?
Well, if you want to talk martial arts, I did some judo when I was about 11. But the guy moved and I moved, so that stopped. And then I just kept on boxing and wrestling. I did a lot of wrestling in high school and junior college. I went to Pierce.
Okay.
And then I got drafted, and then everything changed. And I ended up in Germany, and the Army kind of made me grow up. I went for a physical, and they said that I wouldn't be drafted because I can't see very well out of one eye. I got married, and then they sent me a letter that they changed their mind, and they drafted me. And so I went in, and I wanted to become a ranger and in the helicopters. At that time, I was an automotive mechanic. I started being working in a gas station when I was 16. And I'm really dropping back here, but after I got out of the Army, like I said, I went into the place. Everybody was flexing their arms and muscles and stuff. And we went to 6 different dojos, and I ended up liking the Chuck Norris system the best. Now, back in those days, Chuck was just starting his movie career, and I never saw it. I didn't see him much, but my main instructor was Harold Gross and Dennis Ichikawa. And then I went to Neil Citron, took over after that.
Yep, I know that name. And what made you choose that? What was it about that school that was appealing to you? Since you looked at other schools, what was different at the other schools?
They knew how to talk to me. So some of the schools, I could watch the guy teach. I wasn't impressed. And I mainly went to the one in Van Nuys to start with. Then I lived in Reseda, about 1.5 miles from the Tarzana studio. I lived over on Victory and Donna, and that was about 1 mile or so. And I used to jog into the dojo and worked out 5 days, 6 days a week.
Wow.
I loved
it. And this was the original Tarzana karate that was, I believe it was in the Capri Plaza. Is that the location?
Well, yeah, my memory is good, but it's just short. Yeah, it was Capri Plaza in the corner there. And I was there, like I said, at least 5 or 6 days a week. And Harold Gross was living in the dojo there, and I got him to live in my house.
Hmm.
So we traded my rent for the payments of the school.
Yep. Things were way different in that regard way back when, right?
Oh, and Harold was a hell of a fighter. And
Yeah.
Harold, I haven't seen him in years, but he was a hell of a fighter. But in the dojo, you couldn't touch him. Outside the dojo, it was 180 degrees. He didn't want to get in any trouble. We went to a concert. I think it was in Elton John at the time, and we had tickets. I said, let's go to the front of the line. Oh no, we might get in a fight or something. I said, yeah, you're a black belt. Come on. And it was funny. But Harold in the dojo, he was untouchable. I don't know if you remember John Schumann. You remember John Schumann?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he came up to Tahoe with me and helped me build houses.
Wow.
I had an auto parts store and machine shop back in those days. Did a lot of racing, built a lot of race engine, did stuff for Ed Pink and those guys. And then I wanted to always build a house, so I bought a lot in Lake Tahoe. Back in those days, it cost $10,000.
What year was this? What year was that?
That was in 75.
75. So you've been in Lake Tahoe all these years.
Since 1975.
Wow.
What made you choose?
What made you choose there?
A girl. I met a lady, moved up there, and I even hate to say it, we fell in love, and I got married to her for almost 3 months before I said that's enough. And I drove around the lake. I moved into South Shore, which was a zoo by Heavenly, the ski resort there. I drove around the lake, found Incline Village, found a lot, and became real good friends with the fire marshal at the time. His wife was a realtor, and they sold me this lot for $10,000.
Wow.
And within 6 months, it was worth $60,000. And I built a house, never built a house before. And people started asking me, because I was an automotive machinist, and working in tenths of thousands to going to quarter inches was easy. So I started building, and people started asking me if I'd build them a house. I said, I'm an owner builder. I'm just doing this for myself. And then I bought another piece of property. I think that one cost me like $40,000. And more people started asking me, so I went and got my general contractor's license, and I ended up with 91 employees. And I was a general contractor for 30 years, and teaching the martial arts.
Excellent. Uh-oh. I lost you there for a second. He'll be back. Well, I just want to give a quick shout out to Roger Lacombe, who is watching. Roger says hi to Mr. Shuey. Mr. Shuey dropped off for just a second, but he'll be right back. We'll see if we can get him back on here today. By the way, if you guys have any questions, anybody watching live, if you'd like to ask a question, please post it in the comments, and I'll make sure to ask Mr. Shuey once he gets back on. So let's just give him a couple more seconds. Let's see who's watching, who's out there watching live. There he is. He's back.
I am. I can't see you, though.
That's okay. Drop the camera down just a little bit so I can see the top of your head. There we go. Okay. So we were just talking about, and by the way, you probably didn't hear this, but Roger Lacombe is watching, so give him a little hello.
Hello, Roger. It's been a long time.
Yeah, we were just talking about the fact that you built some homes, and I didn't know that. You know, my father also built custom homes for, you know, the majority of my life has always been in construction. So being on the job sites as a young man and as a teenager, you know, I learned a lot of my work ethic from my father being out on the construction sites and building homes and just that hard work, right? So and then you got to the point where you had 91 employees and you're building houses for 30 years. So that was kind of the main gig. And then teaching martial arts was more or less your side gig, right?
Oh, it was fun. It kept me in shape.
Yeah.
Yep. And that would really change my thing in the martial arts was yoga. When I first started the martial arts, I had trouble spreading my legs over 2 feet apart. And my goal was to be able to get to the full splits. And then I went to Hawaii and found a yoga instructor, kind of fell in love with her for a while, and we stayed together for a couple of years, and she taught me so much, and it changed my whole martial arts career. When I came back, not to brag, but I was pretty much unbeatable when I started playing with that cane.
Well, if I remember correctly, there was a period of time where one of the main things that you promoted was yourself. I believe it was on two chairs doing the splits, holding your cane, right? Because right,
I've done that, and also I sat on two rocks in Lake Tahoe with the Lake Tahoe in the background, on top of the water.
yeah. I just point that out because you're talking about that yoga changed your flexibility, and that was something that you really promoted a lot was flexibility.
Oh, flexibility, concentration, and focus.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now tell me, how did you get involved? You started with judo way back when you were 11 years old. You got involved with Tang Judo a little bit after that, but then you got involved in Hapkido and Taekwondo.
Correct.
How did you get involved in those two arts?
Well, I was following Neil Citron around, and that's what he was doing, and I
Hmm.
followed him for many, many years.
Okay.
And uh, that's a different story. I didn't want to get into that, but we fell apart about probably 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Okay.
I
I
dated
only
his girlfriend.
oopsies. I
After he told me to, but that's a different story. I still
I
love the
uh,
guy,
I
but he won't
I
talk to me.
recognize that name. I recognize that name, but I've never met him. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly from Mr. Chikawa's stories, that he was the creator of one of our requirements for testing. We call it the mandatory kicking combination. I think that he was the inventor of that actual combination that so many schools in our alliance still use, which is kind of cool. But I've only heard
No,
the
he
name.
was amazing. He was an amazing martial artist. He was great. I love the guy. He taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Him and Harold Gross taught me how to fight.
Now, when you got involved in Hapkido and you were testing for your third degree black belt, you were required to do some cane techniques. So is this when you were initially introduced to the cane?
Basically, yeah, I came to class one day, and Neil had a cane. I thought he hurt himself because that's what a cane's for, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I went up to him and said, "How you doing?" And he knocked me around the dojo for about a half hour, and I realized that he wasn't hurt. I was. But the cane, I had to do like 10 techniques for my third degree. And then, of course, being a third degree black belt, hell, I didn't need a cane. So I put it in the closet for about 10 years.
Hmm.
And that's when I went to see my brother. And that's when I found out about the three ladies over 75, and it slapped me right in the face. I said, I have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do something. So I started playing with the cane a lot. And then I started making them because I love working with wood. I started
Mm-hmm.
working with wood, hell, when I was in the seventh grade.
Yeah.
And then I started making some nice canes. And then I started looking around because people were asking me, where can they go to get to learn? And
Mm-hmm.
I looked for months, couldn't find anybody in the United States that taught the cane. So 3 years later, I had a system.
And what were some of the first steps? I mean, there's obviously a lot of trial and error that goes into creating your own system and working with a weapon and just trying to come up with a system to teach it. What were some of the initial steps that you took to start putting things together?
Well, just taking the cane and using it. And, the cane's the same as a screamer stick, but it's got a hook and it's a foot longer.
Right.
And it all came together. All the techniques that in a screamer you can use with a cane, and then you have that crook, which you can add a couple hundred more techniques with that crook. That crook is an amazing tool,
Mm-hmm.
and why it became a crutch instead of one of the best martial arts tools, as far as I'm concerned. I try not to call it a weapon anymore, because once you say the word weapon, it's not a medical device, and they can take it from you.
Right.
So if
Well,
you
it's
see
not
my
off.
websites and stuff, I just talk about a medical device, where everybody now is talking about how it's a weapon, and they're going to make it so you're going to have a permit to carry a cane if they're not careful.
Right. Right. Well, it's not often that you're not going to walk on a plane or travel with a pair of nunchucks or commas or a bow staff, right? But walking in with a cane, pretty unassuming. But
You get on the
tell me,
plane first.
what's that?
You get on the airplanes first.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it's great. Since I started doing that, I always get on the. I walk up and they let me ride on the airplane before first class most of the time.
So when we were talking about your younger years, one of the things that you faced as a young child is you dealt with bullying, right? And
Yes,
and so you had said that you never, when you got kicked and you're down on all fours, you never wanted that to happen again, right?
correct.
Did that ever, you said that you had some fights, here and there, throughout your life, but did the bullying affect your confidence? Did the bullying change your mindset? How did that affect you as you went into your training?
God, that's a hard one to answer because I don't know. I just, I mainly went into the martial arts to stay in shape because I was,
Hmm.
uh, don't want to brag, but in school when I got in fights, I didn't lose,
Mm.
and I loved it. And then when I got into the martial arts, God, I didn't think I felt like a fish out of water, learning all these different blocks and stuff and everything. I never dreamt of becoming a black belt. I
Hmm.
mean, that was not even in my realm. Didn't even think about it. And then after years, I mean, it took me 6 years to get my black belt. I had a knee problem and stuff, but and then I fell in love with it. And then when I got up to Tahoe and they asked me to teach, and it all went from there. And I didn't realize that I was a good instructor until my first student won a grand championship. In fact, he won a grand championship before I did.
Hmm.
And it felt me that I was teaching correctly. So I felt like I was teaching kids the way they should be taught. And I just kept on going from there. I started going to a lot of tournaments.
Hmm.
I wouldn't, at the beginning, I wouldn't drive over 30 miles to go to a tournament. And you had 35 miles to get off the hill to get to Reno. And then when I picked up that cane, the only way I could think of getting it out there for people to learn was to do tournaments. So I started
Hmm.
traveling all over the United States, joined every organization I could. And when I first started in the tournaments with a cane, I was laughed at.
Yeah, tell me about that a little bit more. I mean, because when you started to introduce it, what was the feedback? What were the thoughts of the other people watching
Oh,
you
they would
compete?
smile and laugh and say, "What are you going to do with a cane? I mean, what can a cane do?"
Hmm.
And then within a year, when I went in to join the NASCA, I went and did some NASCA tournaments, was doing very well, and decided to join it when I joined the World Circuit. And with the world there, they have as far as I'm concerned, a real World Circuit. I haven't been with them in years now, but
Hmm.
you had to have at least 19 different countries in the tournament to be qualified to be called a World Circuit.
Hmm.
And in my division, I had over 50 competitors.
Hmm.
So it was interesting, and I did very very well. I won the I was first place for 4 years. Then I got hit by a drunk driver, and I had to have rods and bolts put in my back, and that kind of slowed me down for quite a few years.
Yeah, bring the camera down just a little bit if you can. There you go, perfect.
Okay,
And
sorry.
and so yeah, NASCA is still considered one of the biggest promotions out there for sport karate, and now I'm sure you've seen that it's just really exploded into so many other divisions, so many additional divisions, lots of weapons, lots of extreme weapons, performance weapons, which I think is really fun to watch. But when you were getting started, again, the cane was not it was not a common weapon that you would see in the tournaments.
Oh, there were some schools and some tournaments I went to where a cane was not recognized as a weapon.
Hmm.
I remember doing one in Sacramento. I don't remember the names anymore. That was 40, 50, 40 years ago. But one guy said it's not considered a weapon. I said, well, can I compete anyway? He said, okay. And they gave me a first place. And they changed their rules. Cane was now recognized in their
Hmm.
in their systems.
So you said you got hit by a drunk driver, had two rods in your back.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that and some of the struggles that you faced and how you overcome those.
Oh well. Yeah. In fact, I was on my way to teach class. I was behind another car. Mount Rose is the big highway going through Incline Village, and this guy going 65 miles an hour made a left-hand turn. Did not hit the guy in front of me. Hit me. At that time I had a V10 3/4 ton truck, and it moved me sideways 10 feet.
Wow.
He was moving, and he got out of the car and said, "Don't call the police. I'll take care of everything." I said, "I don't have to worry about that. The police station's only a block down the street. I'm sure they heard it."
Hmm.
And they were there within a couple of minutes, and they put him in handcuffs. Anyway, different story. And then they took me to the hospital and asked me if it was okay. I said, yeah. And then every day the pain got worse and worse, and I was in bed. And then they put me. In fact, they were giving me 15 not hydrocodones, but the one that's a little bit stronger than that, a day. And then finally, I went and got into the operation. They put 6 bolts and 2 rods in my back, bolted together 2, 3, and 4. And they got rid of about 70% of the pain. I mean, the pain was so bad, I was thinking about saying goodbye. It's hard to talk about that stuff because it really took a lot out of my life because I was really having fun competing. I loved going to tournaments.
Yeah.
And then I started exercising again, got my stretching back after that, and I'm still taking about 3 or 4 hydrocodones a day for the pain. And I have to have an epidural about once a year. But I still work out 5 or 6 days a week. I stretch for about 2 hours a day. In fact, I'm going to start doing my virtual dojos again the 15th of August. I'm going to start all over again, trying to get a virtual dojo going for start with the United States and any country, because I had students all through probably in 40 different countries before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, COVID's knocked out about 80% of the schools. It's crazy.
It
I
definitely made an impact.
I want to work for seniors. I want to get the seniors going because the tax on seniors have gone up 60% since COVID. It's crazy out there.
Yeah. So you still deal with the pain from this accident?
Yes.
Man, that's great. And how many years has it been?
It happened in 2003. In March of 2003 is when I got hit.
Wow. So 20 years.
Yeah. And you have to set your mind to deal with the pain. I mean, that's what I had to do. And I get up hurting, and after I stretch, I feel great for a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still do the splits both directions. I'm almost 77 now. And I love working out. So I really want to help the seniors. And things I didn't realize, that over 40% of women in the United States are attacked sometime in their life. And that's just the ones they know about.
40%. That's a big number.
Yeah, I was teaching some CIA and FBI women in New York. And we started talking about that. And they said, yeah, that's just the one they know about. They think it's closer to 50% of women are attacked sometime in their life. Wow. In the United States. That's crazy.
Well, it just goes to show, how important martial arts and learning self-defense at any age is. I often talk to parents and students. As a matter of fact, I was teaching last night. I was reading in the park last night, and so someone asked me, when's a good time to get started? I said, well, we start teaching at 3, and I said the sooner the better, because learning martial arts is about as important as learning how to swim. If you want to be safe around water, you better learn how to swim. If you want to be safe in life, you better learn how to protect yourself. And so with those stats, I mean, it should be a no-brainer. I mean, we all pay for insurance, right? Medical insurance, car insurance, life insurance, debt. We got all kinds of insurance, and self-defense in many ways, for our health and for our safety is a pretty good coverage for insurance, right?
You're absolutely right. In fact, I just a lady that babysits kids that are 2 and 3. When she first asked me, I went, no. I mean, I can't do it. But I kind of fell in love with it. I'm teaching the kids how to walk and roll and fall down properly. I've had parents tell me their kids that fall down at 2, they know how to turn their head so they don't smash their face anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, isn't that just an important part of self-defense? One of the first things we teach white belts and beginners is how to fall properly.
You're absolutely right. And there's so many schools that don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's kicking. I try to teach them how to kick first, because I tell them your legs are 3 times stronger than your arms, and they're also longer. Mm-hmm. So learn how to kick. I do that, and then it's a whole process. But I don't even really start teaching them how to really fight till they're at least 6 or 7. I teach their balance. I teach them how to kick and stuff. I don't let them fight with each other full on until they're about 6. Don't want to get anybody hurt.
So you started your program, way back when in Lake Tahoe.
1976.
It's 1976. So, again, back then, martial arts was still relatively unknown for a lot of people. And I'm sure at that time Lake Tahoe was a lot smaller of an area than it is now, right? And it's
Yes.
still probably a small area. But I mean, how did you attract people to come and train with you, and how you built your school from literally nothing? So how did you build it
Well,
in a
I
small
joined a
area?
thing called IVGID. I started teaching for them. That's the main recreation center for all of Incline Village and Crystal Bay.
Hmm.
And they did all the advertising and stuff. And one student at a time. And back in the 80s, about 85, I had 120 students. And that had people from Tahoe City, Reno, and Carson City coming up to work out with me and stuff too.
Yeah, well, we may have had a little help back in '85, because that's when I actually started martial arts with something called the Karate Kid, right? I mean, it became a little
Yeah,
bit
they
popular
started
when
coming
people
out
started
there.
seeing that movie, right? And of course, before that was the Bruce Lee era. But again, it was still, relatively unknown. It wasn't popular mainstream. I mean, now if you watch any commercials, you see some type of martial arts, or you see martial arts being recognized more and more now. But back then it wasn't. Now, when you started your school, were you teaching Tang Sudo or Taekwondo, Hapkido, or just kind of a mix of all of it?
Mix of all of it.
Yeah.
They all have their good points, and they're all good. They all have special points you should practice, and no matter what you practice, you want to practice any way you can. Like when I teach the cane, um, I teach up to about three when they're fighting three at a time, because after that, no matter what you train, it's not going to happen that way in the street. So
Hmm.
I just practice. I think of different ideas, of different ways they're attacking from different angles, and I'll start out one at a time and then move them up to three. After that, it's you don't know what's going to happen anyway when you get out there.
Hmm. What are some of the main focuses that you teach in your cane system, that you think that are just the most important parts to teach right away?
My thing, people giggle about it, but I teach them how to do a figure eight with a holster. And you stare at the biggest guy with the biggest mouth, and usually they all run away. In fact, I've had at least 50 people call me from different countries and stuff and said they do that figure eight, they get in a fighting stance, and they have that holster. Well, what I mean by holster, the crooks in their hand and the shafts underneath their arm.
Hmm.
And you do a figure eight fast, you holster it, and you're in a fighting stance, and you look at the guy with the biggest mouth, and they're all saying, "Shit, he ain't crippled." And they've never had been attacked. I've had people say one guy was walking down an alley, and three guys were attacking this lady, and he said, "Hey," and he was wearing jewelry and everything, and they looked at him and started heading his way. He did a figure eight and said, "Come on," and they all ran different directions. So I like to stop the fight before it happens, because with a cane, whether they know it or not, I mean, you get a good hickory cane, you hit the guy in the head, he's going to be dead. You hit him in the leg, you can get a cane going. Well, experience, I was teaching 30 police officers, highway patrolmen from highway in Nevada, in Carson City, and they had one guy behind the building I didn't know about. After about 20 minutes in the class, he came out and said, "Mr. Shuey, you got that cane going over 285 miles an hour." And I said, "God, I wish I knew you were there. I could have showed off." And you hit a guy with a 1 1/8 inch good solid hickory cane, they're not going to chase you. They're not going to walk.
Well,
Anywhere you hit them, you're going to break a bone.
yeah, let's talk about how you created, your version of the cane. So you loved working with wood. You created your first cane. How did it? How did you change the design over years? How did you know, come up
Well,
with it? Is it?
yeah, when I first started, the cane would barely fit around my wrist, and that's one part I didn't like. And so the first thing I wanted the cane to fit around someone's neck. So I wanted a good tight fit around a 17 or 8 inch neck. To me, if you go bigger than that, it gets kind of sloppy, because most kids, most people, the average size of the neck's around 15 or 16 inches.
Mhm.
So I wanted to go around the neck tight. And in fact, I used to have it come in. So if you put it around the guy's neck and you pulled, you're going to take out his collateral, or collateral, whatever you call it, and he'll probably bleed to death. And once you put a cane around someone's neck, they start listening to you. Their eyes open up, and One of my favorite techniques, getting around the neck. You get behind them, and in fact, I teach the people to whisper in the guy's ear. You tell your friends out there, if they make one more step, I'm going to break your neck. And that was one of my favorite techniques to show, because neck work to me, you're in complete control. But then from that point on, legs, they can't chase you. You hit them between the knee and the ankle. You're going to break that bottom leg real easy. It only takes about 30 pounds to do it. And then going after the collarbone, that only takes about 10 pounds of pressure. So I say, come down straight, aim for the ear, miss that, and you got about a 15-degree angle. You hit that collarbone, and he's not going to use that side of his arm for about 6 months.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to kill other people, because it's. I have to say, it's been very nice that I've never had to use the cane myself. In fact, I got, not to say anything to him, but I got in a hassle with 6 guys. If I would have had a cane, I would have killed them. I was very lucky. One punch knocked all 6 of them down, but that's a different story. But I tell them to try to stop the fight before it starts. And if you have to fight, you go for the biggest guy first, and usually the other guys will take off. And I've had experience with people, calling me and telling me they got a little bit of hassle. They take care of the first guy. The other 2 guys, you can't find them anymore.
What did you make your first cane out of? What kind of wood did you use the first time out?
Back then it was probably oak.
Mm-hmm.
I tried getting all the different woods I can, but the drying process of a cane is probably one of the most important parts of getting the cane. If you dry it too fast, it has what they have called honeycombs. Inside the middle of the cane, it's void. There's nothing there. There's no wood. And I discovered that. And then I got down to where I'm only making out of 3 woods right now, and that's hickory, oak, and ash. You can't get the hardwoods, the deep forest woods anymore, because they make it illegal to even get the wood out of the country. And hickory is the most solid wood that I played with. Oak, it gets dented, and after a year or 2, they started cracking on me. So I still like oak. It's a good heavy wood, but you go oak against oak, and they start falling apart. But you go hickory against any kind of wood, you might get a dent, but that's it. They don't break very often. I think in the 26 years I was making canes, I had like 15 break, and that was rare, because I usually test them before I let them lift the shop. My biggest test was taking it to smack it against the concrete floor. And if they cracked, of course they were no good.
Right.
And then I let them go. Yeah.
Now, did you manufacture all your own canes? Did you do all the work on all of them?
Yes. Until I started getting into some of these custom heads where you had dragons and lions and tigers and bears and whatever kind of what are you on there, I didn't have the time to do that, so I would send that out to a guy who liked to hand carve.
Okay.
And really got in that. I started doing that, because to me, if you're going to carry a cane, the biggest problem I was having with my students, they'd learn everything, but they wouldn't carry the cane.
Right.
So I said, you guys got to carry this cane. There's nothing worse than having 3 guys coming at you and saying, gee, I wish I had my cane.
Right.
So I have them trained with a cane, so they know everybody's body's different. So I have them trained with a good heavy cane, what techniques their body will allow them to do. And then we design a cane with the little tricks and things on it that works for them. And then I want to make the cane that they want to carry. A quick story is, I had this family came in, they brought their mother with them, and their mother walks in and goes, I don't want a cane. I'm not old enough to carry a cane. I said, well, how old are you? I'm only 82. I said, well, maybe you should learn how to do it, because she'd fallen 3 or 4 times. They were worried about it, because 35% of people over 70 that fall don't get back up again. So we started talking, and she had a little dog in her hand. I said, is that your favorite animal? She goes, yeah. So took a picture of it and put that dog's head on the horn of the cane. The horn is the small section. And then I said, do you have any grandkids? She goes, I have 5 great-grandkids. I put her family tree on the front of the cane. She carries it everywhere. So you got to make the cane that the people want to carry, they're proud of. And then they carry the cane with them. And if something happens, they're ready. Right. And most people design a real nice cane, so they get people saying, where'd you get that? And so on and so forth.
Yeah. Are you still making canes?
Not like I want to. I make them for giving away, like with the Sports Karate Museum. I make a lot for Gary to give away as gifts and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
sold the cane making portion because I wanted to go into mostly teaching, because I was making canes till 3 o'clock in the morning, almost 5 or 6 days a week. I was making a few hundred canes a month,
Wow.
and I wanted to get into teaching. And then I'm not going to get into the aspects of it, but I make canes once in a while, but mostly just real custom canes, and I go from there. I still love working with wood, but it's um, I sold my cane making portion to another person,
Mm-hmm.
and he's taking it over, and I'm getting a lot of calls. He doesn't give them very good service. They won't call back and stuff like that. So go from there. If you want a
Yeah.
good cane, give me a call, and I'll make sure you get one.
And now your future goals here are to do more online, a virtual dojo, specifically looking to help seniors. Is that the goal?
That's it. And I want to do, person to person, and also go to do seminars when the guy has a like a Hall of Fame or a tournament or whatever. They have seminars. I love to go in there and teach in person to let people know what the cane really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Who were who were some of your greatest inspirations in martial arts?
hmm. I'd have to say number one would be Bill Wallace. He's an amazing guy. He's I think we're pretty good friends. I haven't seen him since COVID started, but we make contact once in a while. And of course, Master Norris, um, Don Wilson, Cynthia Rothrock. I mean, all of them out there in the movies are all pretty darn good martial artists, and they're real
Mm-hmm.
people. They're not full of themselves. That's one thing I didn't like about the martial arts is all of the egos you had to go through. It's pretty well egotistical with a lot of people. But once the people find out how to do martial arts properly, that goes away. They become real people again.
I have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about egos in the martial arts. I've
I'm
never
sure
heard that
you don't.
before.
What
Now,
I don't like is I mean, not to be particular, but I was a kicker when I was doing my fighting and stuff, and the kicking process I've seen with most of the guys out there fighting, they don't know how to kick properly. They don't know how
what
to
do you mean
use
by
the
that?
hip properly. They don't. I see them teaching a round kick without turning their hip. How do you do that? You don't have no power in a round kick unless you put your hip into it. And I get pretty particular with that because I love to kick. In fact, when
Hmm.
I do my warm ups, when I teach the class, I'll be going through all the kicks and stuff,
Nice.
and the stretching. The stretching to me, you have to stretch every single. I stretch my toes all the way to what hair I have left, all the way up, and it just keeps me healthy. I don't get sick anymore. And keeping your chi, your health, energy, whatever you want to call it, your blood circulation. You want to stretch everything so your chi can flow through your whole body and keep you healthy. And then I do a lot of breathing exercises. I do one exercise where you let all the air out of your lungs, which most people don't know how to do. And then you lift your stomach up and down and you massage all your internal organs. And that keeps you healthy. Most people that do that, especially if they ever smoke or drank, stuff comes out of their rear end they have never seen before. But
Hmm.
I do stuff that's really, really healthy for you, and it makes you live longer and you just feel better.
Now you said that you have a 2 hour stretching routine.
Yeah, I do on my own.
Walk me through it a little bit so that people that are looking to incorporate
Time for a lot of people, but you need this. I would say a minimum of 30 minutes to
mhm.
do it fast, but I like to do it nice and slow. And if you go to a stretching class that plays music, that's more of a jazzercise stretch. It's not a what I would call a yoga stretch. You work off your breath. You breathe,
Mhm.
and you want to do the same stretch at least a minimum of 2 sets. You do 2 sets of three. The first set kind of wakes up your muscles, say, "Oh, you want me to stretch," and the next one, that's where you start getting your flexibility from. So I do about three. I do them nice and slow and breathe. And in fact, when I first started doing my breathing exercise, I could only hold my breath for 45 seconds, and now I can do it for over 2 minutes.
Wow.
That's not bragging because I have friends that can do it for 5, but I started kind of late.
So walk me through it. Cut out for a second. Walk me through what a simple basic stretching routine would incorporate for someone just starting to really increase their flexibility.
Well, first I stand up, I roll my shoulders, I get them moving back and forth. I throw a few nice easy kicks, I roll my hips around, and then I start bending over, and then I go down to the ground. I usually start with my feet almost together. I grab my toes and I pull my head down toward my knees, and then I'll start opening my legs up, and then I'll do it until my chest is totally on the ground. That takes probably, when I first, which is amazing, because like I said, I can do the full splits. It takes me about 3 minutes before I can get my chest down to the floor again, because your body just tightens up like crazy overnight. So when sometimes I'll sit down and I'm almost leaning backwards, but within a couple of minutes I got my chest back on the floor again. So that's why I want to do it every day. So my blood, my chi, my life energy will flow through my body and keep me healthy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Does that make sense? Well, but I even started stretching my toes, because I've seen so many people when they get to be my age, their toes and their fingers and everything else are all curled up and going weird directions. And it's important to stretch your fingers, stretch your wrists, stretch your toes, stretch your ankles. And I'll start from my toes, work my way all the way up to what hair's left on my head.
Well, we're kind of alike in that way right there.
Good. Well, it's important. And people, when you do that, you feel good. Your day goes better.
Definitely. Well, I know that I've been incorporating a lot more stretching in my routine, just in my short life. I still feel those aches and pains and that stiffness kind of creeping in there. So the more that I remind myself to take the time to do that, I definitely do know what you're saying. When you just feel better when everything's stretched out loose and you got that blood flowing nice and easy. So much.
Well, back when I first started, stretching was, very few schools did any stretching to speak of. You think about even the high school programs, they don't show stretching properly. In fact, they don't even do a physical education anymore to speak of. And to me, that's one of the most important things in life, is to stay healthy.
Yeah,
they should have you stretch every day. But maybe I'm weird, but I think you should try to stretch every day. It does take 30 hours if you do a good hard stretch for your muscles to get back to where they're supposed to be. And that's even in weightlifting. It takes 30 hours for your muscles to get back to where they are. But I do it every day. I do take 1 day off a week. When I first started going, I'd be walking in pain all the time. It is a pain you have to walk through and learn, but depending on how flexible you want to get, you can do it without hurting yourself. But I like to always have a little bit of tension, so I know I'm flexing those muscles and getting everything opened up again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, listen, thanks for the chat today. Thanks for taking the time to be with me. It was great kind of going back in history a little bit, learning about, some of those early years, and also talking about the invention of the cane and your introduction into the tournaments. And then, of course, finishing our conversation, just talking about fitness, flexibility, getting that stretching going on.
Well, thank you so much. I love to. Anytime you want to do it, I'd love to do it. I want to try to help as many people as I can while I'm still around.
Well, that's awesome. And I look forward to seeing more information about, what you're doing online. I'll be happy to help put that out there for you and just keeping in touch. So good luck and all the best out there.
Is what I go by. I used to be the American cane system, but I put the in front of it because everybody's stealing my name. So I just go, the American cane system is going to get bigger and bigger. I'm putting more into it all I can. It's going to open up full, hopefully the 15th of August.
Sounds good. Well, let's stay in touch and look forward to talking to you more in the future.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, sir. Thank you. And for everybody watching, thank you guys for being here today. We'll catch you next week for some more Master Motivation.
Let me give you my phone number and stuff before you go, which is 775-772-9471. And if you don't leave a message, I won't call you back because I get too many robocalls.
I know. Isn't that something I look at my phone every day? Spam risk.
And my website, my email number is mark@gmmarkshuey.com.
Well, there it is, guys. If you have any questions, reach out to him. Learn more about his cane system. Learn more about his stretching routines, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. Thanks again, Mr. Shuey.
Call me anytime. Thank you very much. You take care.
All right, take it easy. Bye, guys.